All right, our next speaker is a lifelong entrepreneur and a New York Times best-selling author. You may have seen him on CNBC, Fox News, or ABC. He's been a guest contributor for several financial TV programs on these networks and more. His book, Killing Sacred Cows, debunks dozens of common myths about money and investing. He shows how these unfounded beliefs rob the working wealthy of the joy and prosperity they deserve. He has dedicated his life to educate and serve these hard-working, honest business owners. The Inc. 500 even named his firm to their prestigious list. His company, Wealth Factory, helps entrepreneurs navigate personal finances and investing. First, they help entrepreneurs find spendable cash without having to work harder. Then they show them how to invest for cash flow according to their own strengths. It's all about minimizing risk and building in guarantees. Did I mess something up? How much longer we got together? This gives entrepreneurs clarity, peace of mind, and financial confidence. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Garrett Gunderson.
Get it, buddy.
Thanks, man. Hey, thank you. This? I don't need it. Okay.
How's everybody doing? You're like, oh man, a financial guy? Are we gonna have to hear about the stock market and get all bored and talk about economics? No. I wanna talk about putting more money in your pocket. Yeah, yep. And I mean, I want you to have actionable items that within 24 hours of leaving here will help you to be able to increase your inventory for your Amazon. I want you to be able to implement all the different things you're hearing to increase traffic and to build a business, because I gotta tell you what, the next 10 years is gonna be insane for those people that don't own businesses. Those people that decide they wanna go the route of traditional finance, which is, if you tighten the belt, if you save and you sacrifice, and you delay and you defer, and you hand your money over to the financial professionals that are so smart that they're getting 98% of people to fail in their planning, then one day, someday, you might be able to live the good life. Anyone heard that story before? You know? Yeah, that story sucks. We're gonna throw that one out. And before I get into things, I just wanna say, it's cool to be in Vegas for a couple reasons. Number one, it was in Vegas where I had one of the most profound breakthroughs around money. And it was ironic at the same time, because I was at this event with a couple thousand people, and I was getting this award for being the Rookie of the Year in the world of finance. So I started out in June of 1998, and if you were within your first 3 years, you were up for this award, and I get it, and I'm like so proud of the thing, right? Oh cool, I'm Rookie of the Year in finance. And I'm out in the hallway talking to this woman, Nancy, who I totally respect. And she's like, hey, that's awesome. I can't wait till you get to the next level and you learn how money really works. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm Rookie of the Year here, you know? 22 years old, I had the world in my hands. I knew everything. But it was pretty profound because I trusted her enough that I just went through a little bit of conversation with her. And what I realized is that, you know what? We've all been taught, trained, and educated that we're supposed to save ourselves rich, or that if we just shrink enough and cut back enough that one day we're gonna have a fortune. But I gotta tell you what, cutting back is costing you a fortune, because it's the antithesis of what makes people really wealthy, all right? So when I had that breakthrough, one, thankfully I did, because now I'm happy to tell you I'm still married, because I was a cheap son of a bitch, I gotta tell you, I really was. You know, if someone out there, if we went to dinner, I was telling a few people this story the other day, if we went to dinner and she ordered wine, I would calculate the compound interest over the next 30 years of what that would become. And that's all a lie, because in reality it wouldn't have come close to that, because we've been fed this bill of goods that just isn't working out, that compound interest is your friend. You know who makes the most money on compound interest? The banks. Everybody knows that, but yet they're trying to train us that we need to do something different. So here's what I want to do. Number one, I want you to find the $890,000 plus that people lose over the next 30 years, because Uncle Sam is tugging at basically the strings right here in your wallet, and that's opening up, and that money's leaking. It's rightfully yours. It's just a matter of having the right financial information to recapture that and put it back in your pocket, all right? $890,000 is the average for a business owner. That's the advantage you have. You're a business owner, and if they're new to it, you have all sorts of advantages that didn't exist before. Number two, I want to make sure that we go through 3 things that everyone that starts a business needs to do immediately with their finances so they can avoid the surprises that inevitably happen. You know, we're in store for financial surprises in our life. That's just what happens. Over time, things come up, issues happen, and if we turn on CNBC, what they're going to tell us to do is just, you're in it for the long haul, just write it out. The market's on sale. Anyone ever heard that? You know, if my airline ticket goes on sale today, but I flew here earlier this morning, it really doesn't matter. Yet they're trying to tell us that it's on sale after the fact. Would have been nice to know beforehand to really benefit from it. But if we look at this, there's so much money that's there for you that you don't have to just, sacrifice, because if you can plug those leaks, the other person that's tugging at your wallet is really Wall Street. There's hidden fees, there's commissions, there's all sorts of stuff. And so I want to help you find that money and put it back in your pocket. But before we do, I think it's important to really set the right context and what really allows for people to be more wealthy. That makes sense? Sound good? Or do you want me to just talk about like the stock market and tell you how bad the economy is? Okay, just checking, just making sure we're on the right topic here. So, first of all, there's really this advice out there, and what if my title of this was live within your means? Anyone heard that advice before? Show of hands, heard live within your means? What does that sound like to you when someone tells you to live within your means? Yeah, we can't have an event this nice of a place. We gotta, go somewhere like Motel 6 to do it or something. We gotta cut back, That's live within your means. It's about reductionist thinking. But here's the deal. That's only the first part. That's only the first way to live within your means. We're going to talk about the second thing that's even more important, is to be efficient within your means. If there's money that's falling out of your pocket, if there's people taking money from you and you can get that back, then you're going to be in a better situation. So before you save another dollar, before you take a dollar away from your business or you put more money into a retirement plan that promises you the good life at age 59 and a half or 30 years from now, whichever one's longer, by the way. It's, compound interest looks really weak the first little while. It's 30 years because then they keep the money for a whole lot longer. And I got to tell you, the financial world doesn't understand the business owners. They think what you do is risky. They think it's risky, so they think you need to take the money out of the business and out of that and set it aside in something that's locked away, that the government owns, that's going to be taxed in the future, that has fees come out of it, whether you make money or not, with fund managers that you've never met, with stocks that you don't even know what's going on in the boardroom of these companies, and that's why it sucks, okay? And in addition, budgeting kind of sucks too. Anyone think budgeting sucks? So let's kind of get past that and get to mindful cash management. And so I want to make sure that we get the money in your pocket, that we tell you what to do as far as you start up a business so that you don't get derailed or you're not thinking too far in the future, but you think about now and you build your future with something that's the asset that you currently have. So the second thing is you're efficient in your means. That's another way to live within your means. Or the third, and this is what I think you're here for, is to expand your means. Production. I wasn't expecting an applause, but I'm very happy to take that. And if I say anything funny that you laugh at or marginally funny, I like that. You can laugh at things. And if you're not sure, I'll cue you when to laugh, and that helps too. So thank you. So expand your means. That's the game. Now, you can live within your means by cutting back. You can become more efficient with what you currently have with some financial knowledge and some financial savvy, or you can expand your means. Now, to do that, let's re-look at the word expense. When I say the word expense, who gets like a negative feeling in the pit of their stomach? Like expense, isn't that usually something bad? Oh, that's an expense. How do we enjoy our money without expenses, by the way? Isn't that how we use money, is through an expense? So expenses are not necessarily good or bad. We have to really determine that. Because if you go to a CPA and they tell you to cut back, that might really be the very money that was producing for you. So the first type of expense is what I would call a destructive expense. You want to get rid of destructive expenses. Let me give the same example that could work on any four expenses. There's people in this room that think that they need to go invest in real estate. I felt like I should invest in real estate. I bought 100 properties at one time. I will admit I was a slumlord with a few of those properties. I never went and saw them. I was scared to go there. But, you know, when someone told me that real estate was a passive income, it's not very passive when something breaks down or the property managers don't handle things. And what was interesting is I originally started trying to become the broke millionaire. Anyone read Millionaire Next Door? Show of hands, Millionaire Next Door. Spoiler alert, if you haven't, I'm going to save you the time, because what it says is if you'll just be a cheapskate your whole life, you can die with $1 million in your bank account. And once again, here we are in Vegas, which one of my friends, I won't name his name, Marcus, who is absolutely that guy that he doesn't know I'm in town, because he might offer to pick me up at the airport in his jalopy car, that he won't turn on the heater in the winter, the air conditioning in the summer. Thankfully, it's not too hot outside, because if I went to his house, and it was 117 once in Vegas when I was at his house, his AC was at 90. I was like, buddy, if I give you $5, could we turn on some AC? And this was coming from, like, I was a cheapskate at the time too. You know, I was telling my wife not to order wine at dinner. I owned 14 real estate properties at this time, yet we lived in a rental. Because that's what I got to save money, save more, save more. We weren't enjoying life. And, you know, Benjamin Franklin said, wealth is not the man that has it, but the man that lives it. And I think that you guys are here as business owners. You're here as business owners because you want to produce value in this world, and you want to have some freedom in your life, and you got to be careful of falling into the trap of the working wealthy, of handing that over and letting other people confiscate that money from you, or putting yourself at risk in the name of saving, or shortening your loans because you're trying so hard to pay something off that you forget to live life. See, because when people get in reductionist thinking, or they're only thinking about living within their means, they get into a condition that I call the consumer condition. The consumer condition is where people look to take more value from the world than they give because they aren't that happy. It's the entitlement mentality. It's driven by fear. It's doubt and worry. But I believe in a completely different world out there is the producer paradigm. It's people that invest in themselves and show up at something like this where they're looking to create more value in the world than they take, and dollars follow value. So if you want to make a lot of money, you find out a way to reach a lot of people. And isn't that why we're all here? Right. So the first thing is you find your destructive expenses. For me, real estate was a destructive expense because I didn't want to pay attention to it. I didn't want to deal with it. I got over-leveraged in it. Some people are really gifted at real estate. They pay attention to it. They like learning about it. They like to research homes. They like to find and fix and flip a home, or create crazy contracts, or whatever it might be. If that's their passion, great. But what if that draws you away from the very business that you're creating right now? What is the cost of your opportunity? Right? Don't confiscate dollars from something that you can do something about, that you get education in if you're passionate about it and driven by it, in the name of something that you're supposed to do. So let's talk about lifestyle expenses. I actually like these ones a lot. You know, lifestyle expenses are like taking a nice trip, doing things that you enjoy, buying nice clothes, whatever it is that kind of floats your boat, so to speak. Those are lifestyle expenses. Those are great. Just don't borrow to consume. People create a bad situation from a debt structure if they borrow to get a lifestyle expense that doesn't have an asset or cash flow attached to it. Does that make sense? So let's then go to a protective expense. And this is one that I'm going to show you how to build very quickly, where most people never get there. A protective expense, for example, would be taking and building a 6-month reserve of cash in case something happens. Now, in case something happens might mean all of a sudden you can buy your inventory for 20% less if you have cash and you can act that day because of whatever reason. You want to have that opportunity fund. Or it might be that something happens where you don't feel well, or you need to pay attention to a family member for a period of time, and that you have to neglect your business for a minute. You want to have money that doesn't put you into scarcity because you're constrained, or you have to make that next paycheck. Building a savings account, for a lot of people, they go, oh, well, it doesn't earn a rate of return, but it's an abundance fund. It's a peace of mind fund. It's there for you when those opportunities come along, if you get there. And that's a protective expense. Insurance can be a protective expense. Asset protection, estate planning. We're not going to talk about all those things and bore you today, but I'm just saying those are protective expenses. And you know what? If you have those done right, those surprises that come along the way, they won't derail you. They won't hurt you. They won't devastate you because you've handled your risk, you've transferred your risk, and you've done things properly. You've thought about what you need to have handled in the next year, not just 30 years from now. Now, the final one is a productive expense. This is the game changer. Productive expenses it's a rainmaking expense. You put $1 in, you invest in an amazing selling machine, and all of a sudden you have all this education, you have the support, you have this event, and you have an opportunity to make more money. Now, those people that turn that into an extraordinarily productive expense are the people that are here and that are going to take action when they leave the room. Right? It becomes extraordinarily productive. It's up to you. It's up to your human life value. It's up to what you can do as an individual that makes it productive. And there's some people that can go and buy a piece of real estate and turn it to productive cash flow immediately, have a database of people that they could sell it to. There's some people, if real estate might be, they just want a second home. That's a lifestyle expense with real estate, right? Or protective expenses, some people are worried about inflation and they just want to take, if they have a bunch of cash, and pay cash for a property so that they have a hard asset. That's how real estate could be a destructive expense, over-leveraged, don't understand what you're doing, not providing cash flow, no exit strategy. Or a lifestyle expense, getting a second home or the home that you really enjoy. That's not really a true asset if it's not providing cash flow, or if it's not an asset that's going to, you're going to sell in the near future and provide a big chunk of change. And then there's the protective one, which is, hey, I'm just going to buy this. Maybe, like when I was first married, maybe my in-laws might say, hey, to my wife, your husband's so cheap, we better buy you a house so you don't live in the ghetto. That might be a protective expense on a real estate side. Or a productive expense might be, we have a lot of doctors that we work with, and they'll buy their building so they can design it exactly how they want, create a tax deduction with something called cost segregation, and now all of a sudden, they can even, when they sell it, donate it first and create a tax deduction and get a lifetime of income off of it. I'll tell you how to do some of that stuff, all right? But, so there's destructive, lifestyle, protective, and productive. So the productive is investing in yourself. It's investing in yourself, in building systems. It might be hiring an assistant or employees or in your education. Invest in yourself first and always. You're the greatest asset. It's not a stock, it's not a bond, it's not a piece of real estate. It's your ability to produce value in the world, because if you can serve others, solve problems, and create that value, that's how you get rich. That's how you get rich right. By the way, I'm not angry or anything. I just get passionate about this stuff. So if you feel like I'm yelling at you, I'm not. I'm just excited. So, all right. I did bring a couple books if anyone wants one. Okay, if you can come get it. You raised your hand fast, so I'll reward that. But yeah. All right. Maybe I'll get you one. Don't worry. How about I just make sure everybody gets at least an access to the book? Okay. Maybe not all hardcover copies, but I will make sure everybody has a free download of the book, and you don't have to opt into anything. I'll just get it to you. All right? Cool. Thank you. So, sweet. I had a few fans like cheering for Killing Sacred Cows in the bio, which I love. Like, more people know that book than they know me. And by the way, Killing Sacred Cows is the original Killing Sacred Cows. I know there's like knockoffs called Shooting Sacred Cows and other things like that, but Killing Sacred Cows is the first one, New York Times bestseller. 9 financial myths, not 8 financial lies. So anyway. I have an extra t-shirt for you if you want it. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Extra t-shirt. All right. Let's put some cash in everybody's pocket, all right? Let's put a little bit of cash in your pocket. So now we're going to dive in. I just had an event in January, and we spent an extra hour doing Q&A on one topic, and it's an important topic, which is your credit. 83% of people have an error on their credit report. 83%. Of those, if they're a business owner, 1/4 of them get denied a loan they would have otherwise had. Maybe they needed a line of credit to buy inventory or to invest in the business. So you want to make sure that you go and check out your credit score. Does everybody in the room know their credit score? Raise your hand if you know your credit score. You want to make sure it's over 780. That's the key. If it's not 780, I'll help you get there quickly. I had a radio show that I did for a long time, and I brought on a credit expert way back in 04, 05. And I was the worst host in the world because he was giving really good tips, and I was texting my wife to implement them. So during the radio show, I get it, she did most of the work, but I did text her the information. Our score went up 79 points, and we already had a good score. So I'm going to give you the main ingredients to improve your credit score. Why is your credit score important? Number one, your insurance prices go down if you have good credit. Your car insurance, your homeowner insurance, you'll get better rates with a good credit score. Number two, 80% of people right now cannot get the best interest rates available in today's economy because they don't have the right credit score, cash flow, or collateral. So I'm going to show you how to have all three so that you can improve your cash flow, have more access to money, or get better loan rates, okay? So let's start with, you want to look up your credit score, and you want to see if there are any errors. That's the first thing you can do. The second thing is, are you familiar with loan to value? If you have a credit card or a home equity line of credit, those are revolving loans. Those impact your loan to value. About a third of your credit score is made up of your loan to value. So if you have a $10,000 credit card, that's how much you can spend, and you go spend $3,000 on it, that's called a 30% loan to value. Now, if you go above 30% on that credit card, even if you pay it off at the end of the month, it could lower your credit score unless, here's one strategy, your business owners, go get a business credit card. It does not show up on your credit. A business credit card, now if you need to charge, you need to buy something, you don't have to go, oh, this is a great investment. This is something I've got to do for the business. It's going to hurt my credit score. It's not going to hurt your credit score unless you default and don't make payments for 120 or 180 days on it. So that's one strategy. The second thing is when you're looking at your credit report, you want to find and see, are they reporting your available limit versus how much you've charged? Okay? The available limit, if it's $10,000 and you charge $5,000, they should show you have $10,000 and you've charged $5,000, so you'd have $5,000 available. If they don't report the upper limit, it looks like you've maxed it out. And that's a trick that they do so that you have a lower credit score, so it's less competitive, and so that less people are offering you good interest rates on different loans so that they can keep you longer. So you want to find out if they're reporting your loan to value. Now here's a big piece. Debt to income is the most important part of your credit. Debt to income is for every dollar you earn, what percentage of that dollar do you have to use towards paying loans? Okay? That could be principal or interest. It's whatever the minimum monthly payments are on mortgages, car loans, credit cards, student loans, whatever it is. They want to know what percentage has to go towards that, because the higher that percentage, the more risk they see that you have default. So this is one of the fastest ways to free up cash flow right here. I'm going to share with you a proprietary tool. Actually, I'd like to take credit for creating it. I just found the person who created it. Way back in 2005, we had an event in April of 2005. It was our first full-day event. And there was a gentleman that came because his dad was a client of ours. This guy's name was Dell, and his dad had been referring him to us for over 2 years, but it was the fact that his dad bought the ticket and we were offering free food that finally got this guy there. He was living within his means, you know, cutting back however he could. And so at the end of the day, he says, you know what, this completely transformed my life. I get it. I want to become economically independent. Economic independence is when you have enough investment and business income without your direct involvement to cover your monthly expenses. That's economic independence. See, I want you to realize financial freedom is a state of being and a state of mind. It's not a state of having. Economic independence is actually when you can cover those expenses. So it doesn't mean you can do anything you want. It doesn't mean you have all the freedom in the world, because freedom comes from a producer paradigm and feeling like you're in control of your outcomes and the value you provide in the world. Too many people get enslaved at retirement because when they get to retirement, now they're concerned because they're living off the interest of investments that they don't control. Taxes could go up, and now all of a sudden they have less income coming in. Or inflation starts to erode the value of their money, so they start to feel like, oh, I got to start spending less, and they start to live like a pauper, even if they're a millionaire. There's plenty of millionaires in this world that you would never know it because, one, they read the book Millionaire Next Door, and they're going to pass that on to their heirs. But two, because the number one fear, according to USA Today, of retired Americans right now is, guess what? Running out of money. Mine is vomiting, by far. I mean, vomiting is like the worst thing for me in the world. I just would never want to do it. You know, it's not like people are afraid that like their kids are going to get hurt. They're afraid that they're going to run out of money. That's a sad state of affairs when the whole promise has been, hey, when you get to retirement, you finally get to live the great life. You get to sit on the beach and throw rocks every single day while you drink your Corona till your liver gives out or your hip does, whichever comes first. That's just no fun. So Dell comes up at the end and he goes, in 1 year, I'm going to create economic independence. He was designing airplane engines, so he was a literal rocket scientist, right? Now he's insane because he spent an extra 20 hours a week, and the way he did it was a real estate portfolio. But sure enough, in 362 days, with only a 401k and a little bit of savings, he had covered all of his expenses. And I heard Jason earlier talk about the Mormons. Well, he was a Mormon, so he had food storage he could live on and all this kind of stuff. And then, being the rocket scientist and the nuts and bolts guy that he is, he invented a way to get your cash flow improved very quickly, called a cash flow index. Very simple and elegant tool that you can use to determine which loans to pay, because you don't want to take a shotgun approach. You don't want to just pay extra anytime you have it to whatever loan happens to be, or the fool's errand is to chase down the highest interest rate. The highest interest rate might not be the best loan to pay off, so this will help you determine that. You take every loan that you have, you write down the balance, and you divide it by the minimum monthly payment for that loan, and it's going to spit out a number. That's called your cash flow index. Take the balance of the loan, divide it by the minimum monthly payment, and it's going to give you a number. If it's a low number, what you've got on your hands is a cash hog. You have something with a pretty low balance is requiring a pretty high payment, and that means it's hurting your debt to income more than it needs to, okay? So that's the first thing you want to do. Take that balance, divide it by the minimum monthly payment, and you're going to get a number. If the number's over 100, it means it's a fairly efficient loan. It's not requiring a really big payment in relationship to how much the balance is. So here's a good example. You might have a car loan that you only owe 9 more months on that car. So maybe that payment's $650 a month, but in reality, you might only owe you owe $4,000. But on the other hand, you might have a second mortgage that's like a $100,000 mortgage that's interest only, or maybe it's a 30-year mortgage, and maybe you only have a $650 payment on that. You see which loan is going to be a lot more easy to pay off, which is going to be most effective, what's going to free up your cash flow. And here's the thing. Here's why the interest rate's not the number one most important thing. If you free up your debt to income, it will raise your credit score. If you raise your credit score, you can negotiate better interest rates on every other loan that you have. So I call that credit dressing. Get it above 780. Use your loan to value, look at your heirs, but debt to income is going to be your highest leverage. And here's the next couple layers of kind of unveiling this to you. We've also found in working with thousands of business owners that over half of them have one of their car loans paid off. And yet they still carry a credit card. Are credit card interest rates usually high or low? Unless it's that 0% one, right, that you have for 6 months or same as cash. By the way, those things have really bad cash flow indexes because they usually require really high payment because the banks are in the business of cash flow. So sure, they'll offer you 0% interest if either one, you're buying something from them, like a department store that offers that, or two, if it's an institution, it's a preliminary thing because they hope with that high payment, you're just going to be 1 day late so they can go back and charge that interest. Or that after that 6 months, you're still going to owe money. So what if instead of having a revolving loan that hurts your credit score, like a credit card, what if you took and refinanced your car loan? Because a car loan is called an installment loan, and it actually helps your credit. An installment loan helps your credit, it doesn't hurt it. And car loans right now are significantly cheaper than credit cards. So all of a sudden you can pay off that credit card, and it turns into a car loan, it boosts your credit score, and now, here's the kicker. Have you ever heard of a streamline refinance with your mortgage? So what you can do with the streamline is, you know how normally if you go get a mortgage, you got to pay for an appraiser, you the broker's fees, you got 300 documents to sign, it's quite the process. A streamline says if you have the right equity, just that you're not upside down, if you've been an on-time payer and you have a good credit score, you can get a streamline where they will actually do at most a drive-by appraisal, which might cost you $300, and a 1-document close and stay with the exact same institution and lower your interest. So we had this guy, Jason, who was a dentist, and I was telling him about this, and he didn't believe me. I said, great. And it was a bad bet on my part, but I knew I was going to win. I should have asked for more, is what I'm saying. You know? Like at least here, if you're losing, you still get cocktails and stuff. I just said, hey, if I'm wrong, I'll get you a certificate to your favorite place to eat. I should have said, and if I'm right, split the difference of the savings with me. Take note on that. Make sure and write that down. That's a good negotiation. But he didn't think it was possible. And he had a decent house. It was a $550,000 mortgage. And we saved $751 per month through a streamline that they did a drive-by appraisal. I think it cost him $350 all said and done, and took him less than 2 weeks. So that's why I want you to pay attention to your cash flow index, because then you can free up cash. One more thing to improve your cash flow. Look at any investment you have, and you can do the same exercise. Take your investment and divide it by the monthly cash flow it provides you. Now, I know if you have a 401k, an IRA, an RSP in Canada, or a superannuitization plan in Australia, or whatever those plans are, there is no cash flow. Although, here's a little tip. Look this up. Write it down. You can do what's called the 72T and get that money out without a 10% penalty before 59.5. So there are ways to not have to pay tax or penalty to get some of that money out, especially if you can create offsets. So what if you look at your investments and you have any investments that are not earning as high of an interest rate as any loan that you have is costing you? Why not cash out the investment and pay off the guaranteed savings of the loan and free up your cash flow and start getting better credit score, have more money to then flow into your business, right? And this is the last piece on kind of the cash flow and credit that I want to cover. If you really want to make this work, if you really want to take it to a different level, I would recommend you do a 90-day debt delay, where for 90 days you pay the minimum to every loan that you have, and you take that money that was going towards any loan or any retirement plan or anything that doesn't benefit you in the short term immediate, and you put it into one thing in your new business or your existing business that you're here learning about, so it could just grow and explode, because everybody else doesn't understand this out there, and you now have an insider and unfair advantage to get ahead, because you've got the capital to build your business and make it a real asset. Does that make sense? Is this helpful? Cool. Great. So you can restructure your loans. We've talked about doing that. There's even ways like, I know Matt Clark and I were talking about this just the other day when we were in Cayman. There's ways that you can actually start to become your own financing situation. I'll talk about some of that today, where you can now start charging yourself interest, have it become a tax-deductible interest if it's attached to a piece of real estate, and then your company, that's your financing company, that maybe does your inventory, that, by the way, now you earn the interest rather than the bank. That's even totally rigging the game in your favor and making sure that you win instead of the institutions. Is that cool, or what? Yeah, I think it's cool. So I wasn't actually asking for clapping there. I'm more into the laughing if I tell a joke, but I'll let you know on that. So, all right, let's now jump into how to start making this really work for you. Anyone in here ever heard of Parkinson's Law? Not Parkinson's disease, but Parkinson's Law. Okay, so like a couple hands went up. This is the reason why when people make more money, they don't get further ahead. Is this economic theory called Parkinson's Law, which says as your income increases, if you don't have an infrastructure, your expenses will increase to meet or exceed the increase. So, I'll say that one more time, and it's worth writing down. Parkinson's Law says if your income goes up and you don't have an infrastructure that actually captures that increased income, a certain percentage of it. You see up here, 15%. There's a reason for 15%. I don't need to go over it. I know a lot of people tell you to save 10%, but there's all this technology that didn't exist in the past. I, for one, kind of have this philosophy of a luxury once enjoyed becomes a necessity. Once you've stayed at, like, I don't know, 4 seasons, Motel 6 just doesn't work as well anymore, Once you've had an event at the Palazzo or the Venetian, it's hard to go back to where I grew up in a coal mining town where they don't have any name brand hotels anywhere, So you want to make sure that you're having an extra factor for inflation, for technological change, for taxes, for planned obsolescence, which is things breaking down, and you want to fix those, or that propensity to consume. So one more thing on cash flow, and then I'm going to tell you exactly how to do this. It just reminds me, now that I'm talking about like propensity to consume and a luxury once enjoyed becomes a necessity, is I went to Cancun to speak last year, and it was 82 degrees. It was pretty nice. And then my next speaking event went directly from Cancun to Minneapolis, and we went from 82 degrees to negative 22 degrees, so over 100-degree difference. And so I really remember the event because of how chilly it was there. But what also happened when I was teaching this cash flow index, I had someone stand up in the room and go, you know what? I'm a CPA. And I'm going, oh God, here we go. Here we go. And they said, and I've just joined your program 13 months ago. I'm going, okay, this is good. And she said, you know what? I only did it because you guaranteed that we would get double our money back of whatever we invested within the year. And my husband was the driver because he's a chiropractor. And so I said, fine. We had our 10-year plan to pay off our debt. She goes, I was meticulous. I have a bookkeeping firm. I knew exactly what we're going to do. And she says, you said that you would improve our situation and we'd be able to pay that off in a third of the, 2/3 of the time. So shave a third of time off. She goes, and you didn't. And I'm going, oh shit. She goes, actually, we only have 18 months left and we're 13 months in. We're not increasing the amount that we're putting away. We're simply not giving extra to the institutions, and we're being more intelligent about how we're doing it, right? I want to put money in your pocket, not take money from you and tell you got to wait forever. So I just want you to understand the power of that. And part of what helps is you've got to go back and set up a wealth account with whatever bank or institution you're with once you leave. A wealth account is simply a separate account that you can now start to put money in that you start to free up. And so your personal account, if you leave cash in there, it's amazing how we find ways to spend it. You want to know why the government gets tax refunds every now and again to help the economy out? Because people don't spend it one time, they spend it 3.5 times on average on the tax refund, right? Because they're going, oh, I got that tax refund coming in. Yeah, I'll buy dinner for everyone. Yeah, let's throw some extra margaritas and tequila shots in there, perfect, yep. And then because of the drinking, they forget about that. And then they're in Vegas, and then they go, yeah, I'll pay for the club, or whatever it is. It's just like those kind of things happen where they just keep spending it over and over. So a wealth account helps you to elegantly track the money that you recapture. I want you to reclaim your wealth and recapture it. So it's simply a checking account or a savings account that you're going to start putting money into. So when you free it up, when you pay off something, you have it go to there. And you can automatically have that deducted from your regular checking account. But now once it goes into there, you can be deliberate about it and say, where do I want to invest this? Do I want to put it right back into my business and build infrastructure, have an assistant, inventory, SEO, whatever it is? Then you can put it right back in, but at least you've separated it, right? Or you can say, I'm going to pay down a loan, but now you know it went there first. But you want to set up a separate account because otherwise it gets commingled like chocolate milk. You put chocolate in the milk, you stir it up. You can't really extract the chocolate afterwards. You got to have a separate account. I don't even care whether it earns interest or not. It just needs to be a separate account. That's really going to help you out. So, cash flow index, we've gone through. Credit score improvement, we've gone through. Now I want to talk about everyone that is a business owner has to have a corporation. I know some accountants say you don't need a corporation, or some people think, oh, how expensive is it going to be? You could get it done for $250 maybe 500 at the most if you're just starting your business. It's not a big expense. But here's the advantage. You can pay a lot less in tax if you have a corporation. And the two that I'm going to focus on, even though there's a lot more than this, and if you're out of the country, when you go back, you want to talk to your own, tax advisors and corporate attorneys, but an LLC or an S Corp are the two primary that are going to impact the most people in this room. An LLC's advantage is it's very flexible. If you have a partnership, it's very nice because you can tax it as a partnership and you can shield yourself from the liabilities of your partner. You can decide you want a bigger tax deduction that year and pass them more income and take more tax deduction. It is very flexible, it's very easy, it's very inexpensive. Here's the mistake. Don't be an individual that owns an LLC. You've just lost the main advantage of protecting yourself and taxing it as a partnership. Single member LLCs might be good for real estate, not for businesses, okay? The second type, an S Corp, I call this the cash cow. An S Corp is essentially, if you have that and you can take a salary when you're doing whatever work that's the technician type of work that's driving the income, you take a salary and you pay full tax on that. But when you take a dividend because you now own a business, you avoid self-employment tax, which is 15.3%. You can do what's called differentiating income out of an S Corp. Now, here's the biggest advantage, too. One is you don't have unlimited liability, but if you miss any tax deductions, you can go back 3 years if you own a corporation and reclaim what you missed. And guess who approves it? The IRS is the one that sends the check back. So here's a couple, since accountants like to use the term red flag, you've heard that term a lot probably from accountants. The biggest red flag is if that's the main thing your accountant talks about, or if they tell you their number one job is to keep you from being audited, because the IRS's intention is to audit everyone at least once during their lifetime. What you want to do is be well documented and get proactive. Make sure that you are talking to your accountant sometime between mid-April and December. If you talk to them any other time, it's the brain dead season, they're probably going to miss out on things or tell you to defer your taxes. That's not tax savings. If you put your money into a plan and you have to pay taxes later, on Wednesday I talked to several hundred of you and we all agreed in the entire room, everyone thought taxes were going up. Who thinks taxes might go up? Who's here because they plan on making money in the future? So don't just defer your taxes in the future, because right now we're historically low on the highest tax brackets. We're at 40% here in the US. The average top bracket's in the 60% range. So be careful about delaying and deferring. You're looking for deductions. Okay? So if you have a corporation, that's going to be very helpful from a tax perspective. But if you own your own commercial building, there's even strategies you can do there. So let me help you with a couple important tax things. First and foremost, does anyone know the greatest tax shelter in the world? Earn another dollar. Earn another dollar. Any accountant that wants you to earn less because they think you're going to pay more in tax, the truth is if you earn more, you'll pay more tax, but you'll also keep more money than if you didn't earn it. There's a difference between what's called a marginal bracket and an effective bracket. Effective says, hey, whether you're Bill Gates, whether you're Matt Clark or me or whoever, we all pay the same tax rate on the first $15,000 we earn. Doesn't matter how much more we earn, that is always taxed at the same low 10%. So if I earn more money, I'm only going to get taxed at a higher rate on the new dollar, not on any previous dollars. So you're always incentivized to make more because it's not going to hurt you. It's okay, contribute some more to the government, but contribute way more to your pocket. Okay? And then that's the reason it's the greatest tax shelter. But here's another tax thing. Don't let the tax tail wag the dog. You know what I mean by that? When you guys crush it, when you go do what you're supposed to from learning this, and you start to increase your income, if you find out you're going to have some people find out they have a success tax, which is the first time they find out, wait, I owe how much? Because you need to start paying quarterlies, and you find out that some of it wasn't just automatically taken out. You can have that surprise tax bill. Don't let the tax tail wag the dog and go, okay, it's December, what do I start buying? Don't buy something for the tax deduction. Buy it for the fundamentals and the economics of it, and if the tax deduction comes along, take that with it. Okay? Does that make sense? So, don't let the tax tail wag the dog, because if you spend $1 to save 40 cents, that's not really worth it for you. By the way, I'm a nerd for this finance stuff. Hopefully I've simplified it enough and given you actionable items that you can now go improve your financial situation. Now, I want to give everybody a gift, though. Is that cool? Okay. Let's pull that up. The first gift that I'm going to give you is, you might have said, hey, you didn't reference the handout very often, and maybe you missed a few pieces. Anyone miss a couple pieces on the handout? Go to wealthfactory.com/ASM and you can download the answer guide, okay? So you can find out anything that you missed. You don't have to opt into anything, you can just download it. Part number 2 is killing sacred cows. And I just want to share a story of what I think killing sacred cows will bring to you that I couldn't do in this talk with our time together today. See, first of all, I remember June 9th of 2006. Because I got this phone call, and it's actually from Mike Azm, who's here today. We've known each other for a long time, and he's part of our network. But we're business partners at the time, and he calls my home phone at like 6 a.m. I don't even know my home phone number. Anyone else know their home phone number? So I was like confused, like, what is that ringing sound? It doesn't sound like a cell phone. And so I didn't even answer it the first time around, and then the second time around, I pick it up, and he goes, hey man, our company plane left St. George last night, and no one's heard anything. And it's been several hours since they should have landed. And so our two business partners, Ray Hooper and Les McGuire, were on the plane. I hung up the phone, kind of taken back and in a little bit of shock, and so I turn on the news, and they confirmed that the plane had crashed in the Utah Lake. And so I mentioned I had a radio show. Les was always on the radio show with me, unless I got a text like 2 minutes before the show, like, oh, I'm going to go to St. George with Ray and speak. So that's basically what had happened. And it was one of those situations where I was like, okay, we have 42 employees, we have 3 offices, I'm going to do whatever it takes to keep their legacy alive, which sounded noble, which sounded great. We were working on a book at the time. We were just starting to talk about it. And I had spent 2 years writing a book that you'll hear about here in a second, but I got 72 pages in 2 years. You want to know why? Because I wanted to write it to be cool and have a book and tell people I had a book, and it was all about me. And that's not very damn inspirational. It's really hard to write a book if you don't have a big why. But where my why came in was I was driving down 4 months after they died. And during these 4 months, it was some of the hardest times of my life because, first of all, I gained 22 pounds because I'd get up at 5 a.m., I'd drive to an office an hour away that had housed most of our employees, and then I would get home, and then my son was always asleep, and sometimes my wife would even be asleep because I was just working. I couldn't make simple decisions. I remember one day someone said, hey, you're double booked, what should we do? And I just sat down, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I was exhausted. In the name of living my life for someone else and something else and thinking it was the right thing to do. And fortunately, my wife and I have our best conversations when we go on long drives. And it was Thanksgiving, so November of 2006. And we're in the Bentley, so we have, everything that you would think, oh, this guy is wealthy, he's got it all. But I was missing out on a whole lot of what wealth really was because we were driving in the canyon. I love this canyon. I mean, it's just like, the mountains are just right up against you, the trees are right there, and they're snow-capped, and my wife's telling me some things. She's like, hey, I think you're an extraordinary radio show host. And I'm like, oh, let's keep with this conversation. She's like, I really think you're extraordinary at business. And I was like, well, the last 4 months have been rough, but yeah, go ahead. And she tells me some things like extraordinary this, extraordinary that, and then she looks back at my son. And then she looks at me and she goes, but you're really just an ordinary father. You ever had those moments of truth like that? Those lines of demarcation you remember before and after? See, I didn't argue. I got emotional. I was like, she's right. And before that moment, I never really truly believed you could have it all. I thought you had to work so hard. I came from this coal mining background. It was all about work ethic. So I didn't really think you could have it all. I thought you could be really successful at business, and if people ask me my hobbies in my 20s, I'm like, I own a business. Well, you live in Utah, do you ski? No, there's no business on the slopes. I own a business. I work. And so I decided within 6 days of that moment of the conversation that I gave that division of the business up for no compensation, just said, it's yours if you want to take it. I'm not going to be answering my phone. I'm going to spend some time with my family. I'm going to reconnect to who I am. And what I did was, thanks. And so what I did was I actually spent time with my son and my wife. And what happened was crazy because first of all, it was like this portal to genius kind of opened up where I had so much more energy and clarity and abundance, and I felt so much better because I wasn't so exhausted. And by spending time with them, I was like re-energized and getting excited, and then they would eventually go to bed, and I started writing this book. And I wrote the book, and I thought the coolest kind of review of the book came from Publishers Weekly. They said, this book reads more like Think and Grow Rich than it does a financial book, and I'll tell you why. Because my perspective was that wealth comes in 5 tracks. That not only is it the money that we talked about here today, and for those people that say money's not important, they probably don't have a lot of it. I look at it a lot like air. If there's plenty of it, we don't talk a lot about it, but when there's not much, it's suffocating as hell. I want you to have a whole lot of money in your life. Finance is part of being wealthy. Unless you're going to go live up in some mountain and live off the land. Okay, money's not as important then. Okay, then the second thing though is purpose is so critically important because if you lose sight of your purpose, you will lose how to get through the minutia, and if you don't have a vision that's a lot bigger than whatever that money is that you're making, you're going to get tired at some time. You've got to connect to what you do. You've got to let people know why you do it, and if you do that, because you know why I'm here? I'm here because we're out to make sure that 1 million entrepreneurs get economic independence by January 1st, 2020. That's what I'm here for. That's what I want to make sure happens. So you got money, you've got purpose, you've got mentality. No matter how much luck, saving discipline, rate of return, financial advisor, internet marketing savvy, or whatever. If you have the scarcity bug or scarcity mentality, you will destroy your wealth. You've got to create an abundant mindset and an abundant living, and if you do, you're going to have so much more wealth. And then your health. Your health is part of your wealth. Take care of it. If you're sacrificing it, no money will ever help you get it back. And I know there's people on the Forbes 400, one guy's diabetic, has his leg cut off. I'm pretty sure he would cash in all the money for that back. Take care of your health. And then finally, the fifth piece, you're here, you're experiencing this. Social interaction. I went to Cayman with the guys from, the top affiliates with Amazing.com and with Matt and Jason. And I got to tell you, man, these are great people. What they put together, they care. They gave great information to everyone. Everyone connected. Spend time with quality relationships. It's where our wealth really exists. It's where the most hidden potential is our relationship capital. Invest in experiences along the way. Don't just wait for retirement one day, someday. So when you read that book that you just get to download, I would say this, you have to read at least one page if you download that thing. 1 page minimum. 1 page minimum. That's it. Right? That's the exchange. But it's coming from a place of understanding money in a broader context and making sure that you don't fall prey to the 9 financial myths that hold business owners' backs. It is your permission manual to succeed in life in what you're doing in business, because everyone else in finance that doesn't understand business doesn't get who you are and is going to harm you and hurt you instead of help you. Okay? Thank you. Now, we went through 2 short pieces of 7 key areas to recover cash. So on that page, wealthfactory.com/ASM, you can go and fill out online and find out other areas you might be leaking cash. We ask you the question so you can go, wait, I don't have that handled. And then you know that money's leaking. And if you have a financial planner, it's probably an area they don't handle because it's areas that are not commissionable, and it's not about funding retirement plans. It's about duplicate coverages with insurance. It's about all these areas where money can be leaking out of your life and you're getting screwed. I don't want that to happen. I want you to go through that. And if you want to talk to someone at the end, you can click, yes, I want someone to talk to me about this because I need more information. But it gives you more depth to what we talked about today. And finally, the last piece, and I brought 3 of these guys with me. You can go to this site called AskTheMoneyNerds.com. I've only mentioned this site one other time, and it was in a Forbes article. But you guys, this is brand new for you. You get a live and real person that's not attached to a commission or some fee to answer your questions. These are the nerds that are writing books with me, and they want the feedback. They don't want to know what real people are dealing with. And so you can take any area you learned today and go, how do I implement it? And you can type in your question on AskTheMoneyNerds.com and get a real person to respond back to you so that you can now get things handled. And we have accountants and investment advisors and cash flow specialists, all part of that network, so they'll get you in the right hands, and they're going to take great care of you. You can meet a lot of them when you see me in the back of the room. And I just want to say, finally, I love being with business owners. I love that you invested in yourself. You've made a great decision. Take it all the way. I know you can do it, and I'll be around for the next day or 2. Can't wait to shake your hand.